Welcome to the Honest Hour. I'm your host, Luis Acevedo, and there's quite a bit to talk about today, guys. So I just want to kind of jump right into it. The first thing that I want to talk about is what took place with Russia defaulting on their debt, and then going into how it's actually negatively affecting the West, and how Russia is going to win World War III. Russia and China will win World War III. We're going to talk about what NATO's doing and all that stuff. So firstly, Russia, per Western media, has defaulted on their debt, their sovereign bond debt. So the best way to look at, sovereign bonds are basically IOUs governments give out, and then they pay their interest on it, etc. So what's taking place right now with Russia and its debt is this. A good way to look at it, a good analogy is the following. You have a loan from the bank, and let's say it's on a car. You have money in the bank. You're paying your car payment every month. You are religiously paying it every month. But then for some reason, because the bank decides they don't like the way you're spending your money, they don't like what you're doing, they freeze your account. And then they say you're defaulting on your debt when you cannot make your payment over the next month, the following month, the month after that. They're blaming it on the fact that you are not paying your debt, despite the fact that they are the ones who froze the accounts. This is exactly what happened with Russia and their debt, their sovereign bonds in the Western world. Their bonds giving out to the United States and European nations cannot be paid because they froze the bank accounts. But it doesn't matter because Russia's economy is so big, they have sovereign bonds everywhere, and they're still paying that interest on the other sovereign bonds, which they can. And they're saying that a lot of investors are saying this is a very lucrative opportunity for them to sweep up and buy these bonds and then earn yield on it, better yield than before. And so it's having a negative impact on the United States and Europe because there are investors in these bonds who aren't getting anything because the United States and Europe won't let them pay their debt. That's as simple as it gets. And so the Russian ruble keeps getting stronger. It was at 56 rubles to $1. And then you have it at 53 rubles to $1. So the Russian dollar, the Russian ruble is getting stronger. They're having an issue of a strong ruble, of deflation taking place in Russia. And they're making more money than ever in Russia too. More money than ever. And now you have nations like Iran and Argentina that want to join BRICS. Why do they want to join BRICS? Because they're tired of the Western regime, which is exactly why NATO just said that Russia is not broke. You do not know Russia if you're saying they're broke. Russia is going through a huge win right now. They're about to bring in $321 billion just in oil sales. Okay? That's huge. That is huge. And now you have BRICS where Russia's like, hey, guess what? We are going to only do exports to the BRICS nations, which makes up 40% of the world population and about 30% of the world's GDP. And that's only going to grow because Russia and China are taking over. And this is exactly why maybe the U.S. should do the same thing Russia did. What do you mean exactly, Idris Wayne on YouTube? What do you mean? This is exactly why NATO and the Western nations aren't giving up at all on this. They're saying, don't give up Ukraine, even though Ukraine's getting defeated left and right. NATO's like, yo, we're going to up our armed ready forces by 650%. So that would mean 300,000 ready forces. 300,000. Because they said that Russia is a threat to the international belief system, essentially, that they have right now. So basically, the only reason, there's multiple reasons I say that the war continues is because, one, it's a good scapegoat for the economic downfall that's happening right now. We're funneling billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars into Ukraine, and they keep losing. They can't use our weapons because they're not trained on how to use our weapons. Right? So that's huge. They're not even trained to use the weapons, guys. That's huge. By the way, guest request, comments, and the questions will be answered after we finish the topics on TikTok. So Emily Stratus, 184, give me about 10 minutes here to cover these topics. And then we'll let people in and we'll have conversations. So, where was I? So you have NATO wanting to up their amount of troops, right? And then you have the fact that the U.S. and the Western nations are using Russia as a scapegoat for the financial collapse that's taking place. And then you also have another layer where the West wants to control Ukraine because it's so rich in minerals. And that's part of the reason why they're over there. Okay? It's to control Ukraine. It's to make Ukraine a puppet state. That's the point. At least that's what I'm thinking. And then they also want to, break apart Russia, fragment it for their resources. Okay? And then the other reason, the last reason, is because the West is failing. The American empire, which is the spearhead of the globalist agenda, is failing. That empire is failing. It's done. It's over. And so they're thrashing, doing everything they can to save it. But they're losing. They're losing. And they just want to keep going to war for no reason. And guess what? Most of the ammunition materials that we need come from China and Russia. Not only that, but the United States is not an industrial power anymore. Russia is. Russia makes better quality weapons than the United States, and Russia is better prepared for war. And if the United States were to get into direct conflict with Russia, Russia would win. You want to know why? We see proof in Ukraine. Here's how we see proof in Ukraine. Because Ukraine has not only been trained by covert operations from the United States government for 8 years, but they've also been trained by NATO for years. And they lose. They lose. I'm not spreading fear. I'm not spreading fear at all. I'm spreading reality. And I think it's going to be good for the United States overall. I'm very pro-American. And I think that we just need to face it that the United States is not what it was. And we are totally degenerate as a society. And as a military power, we're weak. China will take us out with their missiles on our aircrafts. Russia will destroy us on the ground. This is the thing. The United States will not win against Russia. Once Russia and China really start imposing sanctions on the U.S., y'all will see this. And Russia's already giving little taste of sanctions by not allowing certain citizens into the country anymore. So there's that. So that's what's going on with Russia, the United States, as of right now. And then the other thing I want to talk about, And then we'll let people in. I see we got 2 guest requests. And then we'll let people in and we'll have conversations on these topics. Deflation is the issue we face, not inflation. This sounds counterintuitive to everything that you're seeing, but I'm telling you this is the case. The reason why you see price hikes in food and gas is because of supply chain issues. It's more so logistical problems than printing money. Not saying printing money doesn't cause inflation, but it's only one half of the equation. You also need money velocity to increase. Okay? So, right now, the reason why we're seeing a price hike in food is, well, there's been a lot of food plants being destroyed lately, and the supply chain is really hurt. Not only that, there's a huge amount of truckers that are going out of business. All right? And trains and trucks are having a hard time delivering certain loads because they have no place to put them. So there's huge backups. All right? And retail stores like Walmart, Target, etc. That's on purpose, dude. In part, yes, in part, but not all of this is a conspiracy. You know, we can't say this is all planned. I don't think this is all planned. In part, some of it is. Some fraction of the elite are planning. But most of this is just happening because of the disorder in our society, because of how dysfunctional and dependent we've been upon free trade for so long. Right? So, as I was saying, part of it is planned, all right? But then you have trucker shortages. You have truckers that are working and trains that are working that can't drop off stuff. And so you have big box stores like Walmart, Target, Best Buy that have a huge surplus of items, everything you can imagine. And they're saying, we can't take any more stuff in right now. So they're starting to reduce their shipments in, right? They're starting to reduce their shipments in. And the reason they're doing that is because they have too much stuff. And so what you're going to see is the prices of these things go down. But the issue is this. When you stop the supply chains even more, and then the sanctions are imposed on the United States, you ain't going to have that supply anymore, my man. You're not. It's going to be done. So there's going to be a huge deflationary periods for like TVs, stereos, computers, clothing, all these things. All of them. But then there's going to be a huge shortage of almost everything because the supply chain will cripple even more and sanctions will be imposed, which is why we need, first off, Emily, if you keep coming in here trying to forcefully come on the show, you're not going to come on, all right? This isn't your time. We'll let you in, all right? We're running on my time, all right? So, deflation is going to be the main issue, all right? Deflation. I was not being rude. Okay, well, fine if you weren't being rude, but the way that you keep pushing it in, it's like, hey, I saw you. I see the guest request. I'm going to let you in. All right. So deflation is the issue we face. There's some benefits to deflation. Firstly, you got cash. You're golden because cash is going to increase. All right? It's going to increase in value. And there's a lot of corporate bonds out there that want their American dollars. So deflation is going to happen. The dollar will get stronger, but that's going to cause a lot of issues. What are your sources? Literally search the keywords in what I'm saying. So dollar gets stronger. Benefits to that is that you have more purchasing power as the consumer. However, over time, if prices keep going down, businesses are going to have to pay their employees a disproportionate rate to where they're getting paid way more than they're selling their products for, and they're no longer profitable and can't stay in business. That's a problem. That's a problem. So, yeah, I think that we're heading towards a depression, and depressions are deflationary. But there's always opportunities out there. So I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I think that if you're working on localizing your supply chain and building up valuable skill sets to be an asset to your community, you can thrive during these times. Many of people have become very successful during recessions and depressions. So nothing to be fearful about. It's just the reality of what we're in. So now we'll be allowing guests in, taking comments and all that stuff. So this is the part of the podcast where we let some people on in. So here we go. We'll let a couple people in right now that have been waiting.
Hey, great to speak with you, brother. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. And yourself?
I'm doing all right. I wanted to talk with you about a couple of things and the situation all across the world.
All right.
Okay, great. I see that you say Russia beats America, and you also say deflation, not inflation. Are you saying that we should rather have deflation than inflation?
No, I don't. It's not my preference. I'm stating what's actually happening.
So you're saying that deflation is happening right now?
Yes.
What does that mean? Do you not look at the actual statistics?
Yeah. Did you not catch what I was saying when you were trying to just come on? You were focusing on coming on in, and I've addressed this point. And that point is the reason why these prices are going up. My argument is supply chain breakdown, not inflation.
Well, what would you say to, for example, top regulator Pinicon in coordination with subsidiary Simon Cowell, who have done many studies on this topic, as he's a top regulator and has to watch this very carefully, very earfully, and they have said the exact opposite of you.
That's okay, but what's your argument?
Well, they are a huge part of it.
Okay, but what is your logical conclusion? Give me it.
I think it is a big inflation, the opposite of deflation.
Okay, but all you're doing is citing somebody with somebody else said, but that doesn't do any good.
Inflation is what you're talking about, and it's not deflation according to top regulators such as Peter Cohen and his subsidiary Simon Cowell.
Yeah, but use your critical thinking skills, and what do you see?
What do you have to say to that?
What do I have to say to that? Well, it's very easy. So supply chain is broke down because of the lockdowns that took place a couple of years ago. And so because of that, we are having a hard time getting shipments of things, a lot of things. And then we also have sanctions being imposed on certain nations that are restricting us from getting certain things. And so those things become scarce. What happens when things that are in demand become scarce? Price goes up. So that is a form of inflation, which is demand pool inflation. But it is not inflation in the sense of money printing and money velocity causing prices to go up. It is a direct effect.
True, no offense.
It is a direct effect.
Don't interrupt.
It is a direct effect of supply chain. That is my argument.
Well, no offense, but my response to that, number one, is that the other guy telling me not to interrupt, I was not interrupting. I just...
Yes, you were.
Hey, brother, don't speak to me. I'm trying to speak to him, not to you, so please...
But you're talking about me. I'm waiting
brother,
for you guys.
I'm basically telling you in a nice way to close the face, exit, and write notes in the meantime. I'm speaking to
stop
a
interrupting
smart host. I don't want to speak to a dog mouth.
All right, no need to insult people here. Get your point across.
He was insulting me, so I'm just getting.
I don't think he was. I don't think he was, but make your point.
Great, Well, what I want to say is that I heard you mention that with I forget the word. English is not my first language. You're saying that when we put sanctions on other countries, it makes it harder to get stuff. So it's not inflation in the way with the money, the print, and this and that. It's the inflation because it's a scarce resource. Well, that's actually not true. I'm sure that, for example, you're talking about gas, and the actual statistic for that is that 12 months ago, gas was much cheaper, and the U.S. was getting in 18.9 billion tons of gas outside. Now we are getting in 27.8 billion tons of gas from the outside with a much higher price on the gas. So that is just simply not true for the biggest contributor. So what do you have to say to that?
Yeah. So what I'm saying as far as supply chains go is overall, not just directly gas. As far as gas goes, it's more of a logistical issue and more of a antagonistic government policy that we have against oil producers in the nation. So when Joe Biden came into office, and by the way, let me preface with this. I am not a fan of either political party. I identify as a Christian nationalist. I don't really support the Republican Party as it stands. I don't support the Democratic Party as it stands. There are obviously things that I agree with both of them, but as they stand, I am not a huge fan of either. All right. I didn't vote for anybody in 2020. I just want to clear that out so that way we know there's no political bias here in what I'm about to say. So Joe Biden, so Joe, well, hang on. I'm making my point. I'm making my point. I'm making my point to your statement there in regards to gas. So supply chain has caused issues in a bunch of other industries. Provable. I know people that work in purchasing. I know people that work in logistics. Supply chain issues are a huge issue. And then for gas, the main issue when it comes to gas, especially in America, is we have an antagonistic government to oil producers and gas producers. And so what we're doing is disincentivizing them for mass production. They could be producing much more. A lot of oil drilling was stopped in America. A lot of future pipelines were stopped in America. This is true. There were a lot of pipelines that were stopped in America. There were a lot of things that would have increased our supply and made us energy independent during the Biden administration, which Trump was working towards. And then we became more dependent upon global gas and oil, as now we're trying to circle back around and saying, Venezuela, forgive us for our sanctions, forgive us for being so antagonistic, but we need your oil, man. We need it. We need it. We need it. And we're doing the same thing. And right now we're also buying Russian oil from India to circumvent the freaking sanctions that we have. So we're dependent upon this global system as opposed to becoming more self-reliant. We have enough natural resources here. So that is the primary thing with the supply chain. Now, Emily, I'm going to let the other gentleman in here speak because he's been patiently waiting. So let's hear what he has to say.
Okay. So the top point, Russia beats America. Can you explain how they can beat America?
Yeah. So I explained this. I explained this with in the first 10 minutes of the show, but I'll give you the.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. So I'll give you a brief summary as to why. Russia has easily defeated Ukraine. Ukraine has been trained by NATO for years and years and years and years and years, their armed forces. So that shows you that the Western training is not great. And then also the United States has had covert programs over there from 2015 to 2022.
That's not true.
This is true. It just came out in the New York Times. Anyway.
And to talk on your other point for just a moment, you were saying that we are buying gas from India that is from Russia. Well, what you did not mention is that money printing, number one. And number two, you said that the Biden-Harris administration went away from Trump and stopped mass producing oil on the same level, the same scale. That's not true. Right now, we are producing 18.8 billion tons of gas right now. In 2019, before COVID, we were doing 11.8 billion gas. a much lower amount. So we are getting more gas. We are producing more gas, buying more gas, and it is still going up due to inflation and money printing.
Okay, so I'm not sure. So we have a conflict with sources, but you did interrupt. So I'm going to go back to the question. Well, I'll first say this.
Oh, so you have nothing to say on that.
Well,
because it was my turn.
Exactly.
You shouldn't
Well, your
have
turn
anything to
is
say.
saying
And so hang on. Emily, you're going to get out of here, dude, if you keep this up.
you will not
Thank
do
you.
shit. I'm asking you a question, brother. So answer the fucking question, brother. Don't fucking threaten nothing, brother.
All right, he's gone.
Okay.
All right. So really quick, before we get back to this, I saw a comment in here. Somebody said that Russia defaulted yesterday. No, they did not default. You have to understand that their bank accounts are frozen per the US and the European nations. And so it's like saying you have a mortgage, right? You have a mortgage and the bank's telling you have to pay on that mortgage, but the bank froze your bank account. So how can you pay on that mortgage? You can't. It's impossible. So now, getting back to your question, how does Russia beat America? As I've already stated, Ukraine has been trained by the CIA for 8 years, 2015 to 2022, with weapons, intelligence, and other forms of training. They've also been trained by NATO for a long time, okay? And then their forces are getting wiped by Russia. Provable fact. 500 to 1,000 Ukrainians are being lost every day in the war. So that's one reason why. So we already have Western powers influencing the Ukrainian army and training them, and they're not winning with the training. All right? So that's one reason. The other reason is this. Russia is an industrial power. The United States is no longer an industrial power. Give me a second. I had to block Emily because that dude is not speaking on here. He's not speaking on here. So Russia actually has manufacturing power. The United States outsources their manufacturing power. So on that front, we lose. Also on the ground, we lose because Russia is much better than us on the ground. Buddy, the last time Russia defaulted on debt was 1918. Bro, and that was during the Bolshevik Revolution. Even during the worst of the Soviet Union, Russia didn't default on their debt. And Russia's paying their debt everywhere in Latin America, in Asia. All right? They're paying it everywhere. Smart investors are buying up sovereign bonds from Russia right now. The only reason Russia can't pay back their bonds, their debts, is because the United States won't let them, literally. So those are a lot of the reasons why. And also the U.S. military is extremely weak right now. It's extremely weak. We're starting to recruit anybody. We're starting to take in anybody because we don't have the numbers and things are getting bad.
All right. Have you said everything you wanted?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It's really not. Everything I'm saying is not to disrespect. Okay, just so you know. So it's really not that smart to compare Russian soldiers with Ukrainian soldiers. To think about the amount of soldiers, and not just that, but the fact that many Ukrainians are dying every day. Not a lot of them are soldiers, but many are citizens that hasn't done anything, right? And everything started with, as I know so far, I could be wrong, correct me. Everything started with Russia wanting Ukraine and wanting more, right? And not just that, but you cannot say that if NATO will involve and they will start a war, NATO will lose, because that's what 38 countries against like 5 countries together, and that's a pretty big number. And I mean, Russia is big, but that's just land. And I get your point with America starting to recruit anyone, but America is still one of the largest military. It has one of the largest military soldier amount. If I'm not wrong, though, that's yeah. So again, it's really not that smart to compare Russia with the Ukrainian. Depending on what Russia has gone through in the war and what the Ukrainian has gone through. I mean, Ukrainians are not that big, and it doesn't really matter how they got trained. But since Russia have more, they have went through more. I think so. That's really all I want to say.
Yeah, so no, the war did not start because Russia wanted to take Ukraine. The war started because there was an agreement between European powers and Russia stating that NATO would not keep trying to encroach closer and closer on Russian land. And then they tried to convince Ukraine, to come to NATO. And then NATO was like, yeah, we'll probably join. And then Russia was like, don't do that. We have an agreement. This is literally illegal what you're doing. And then if you do this, we have to retaliate. And then also there's been genocide going on the eastern half of Ukraine for quite some time. And the fact that you say that their training doesn't do anything, let me tell you that in Afghanistan, they beat the Soviet Union, and the Middle Eastern countries beat the Soviet Union. They beat America. They retain their sovereignty over a lot of their nations. So it doesn't matter the size. It matters the training. It matters the vigor. It matters what you're fighting for. And so the fact that they've been trained by U.S. and NATO is a huge indication that they are not doing well. The fact that Ukraine is getting so much money in weaponry from Western nations and they're still failing, they're losing territory left and right. There's a good YouTube channel summarizing all of this. It's Military Summary. And he goes into all the minutia, all the battles, all the territory that Russia's winning. So Russia is destroying Ukraine, and they will absolutely beat the United States. And then we have some people in here. I just want to address some of these comments as well. Buddy, they caused a crisis. U.S. manufacturing output is literally 10x Russia. What are you talking about? So I'm not sure of that specific fact, but what is also true is the United States is really dependent upon the global supply chain, where Russia is not so much dependent upon the global supply chain. And that's a big crutch for the United States. So that's what I would have to rebut to what you were saying.
By the way, I didn't say the training didn't do anything. I said that, thinking about like what Russia has went through.
How's it going?
Good.
Ling Ling. It's third junior. My pronouns are cat/it.
Hey, I would stay here, but I'm Muslim and I'm gonna catch a prayer, so I kind of have to go.
Peace be upon you, my brother.
What did you say?
I said, peace be upon you, my brother.
Walaikum. I can't give a full.
I get it. I'm not Muslim. I'm Christian. But hey, I respect the Muslim faith.
That's right. I respect Christians.
All right, man.
Peace.
All right. So Russia is about to be wiped off. No, they're not. They're not. You stop watching Western news, guys. This is insane. BRIC countries are a powerhouse. They are. And the Western powers are like thrashing. This is like a death thrash. They're like, we want to stay in power. But China and Russia are like, it's us now, baby. Bow down and kiss the ring. That's what they're doing. Russia can't even take Ukraine on. This is insane. That people are even saying Russia can't take Ukraine on. Look up the YouTube channel Military Summary, and you will see just how bad Ukraine is losing. It is really, really, really interesting. LOL, we would destroy Russia. They would launch new. They can't. Okay, this just shows you your ignorance. Do you know the United States? Hang on. The U.S. is dependent because we consume so much. We could support ourselves in food. Exactly, Tom. Exactly. We will always be in power. We will not, Tito, my man. I'm telling you, my man. China, Russia, they come in for the top. They come in for the belt, and they're going to take it. They've already taken it. We just haven't accepted it yet. But no, we would not. So first off, in the United States, the president can be like, yo, launch that nuke. If nukes are even real to begin with. They can be like, yo, launch that nuke. But in Russia, they have a chain of command, which nobody even knows about this stuff, man. Russia, if one of the other generals is like, nah, I ain't doing it, they can't launch the nuke. And also, you want to criticize the Russian economy? Guess what? They have open debates with their central bank. When's the last time you've seen the United States government have an open debate with the central bank? It don't happen. Like, Russia is a powerhouse. People will realize this. You guys are all wrong, and this is why you should subscribe, so that way you can learn a thing or two and stay ahead of the curve, because I will show you the way, young grasshoppers. This dude is misinformed. It's crazy. Dude, we dropped 2. Allegedly, you look into that. There was only one reporter. He had a big nose, small hat, the only one that could allowed to do it. Anybody else was threatened with the on a life penalty, swear to God. And then a lot of firsthand reports, primary documents say that they were firebombs. The military is being depleted. Recruiting is way down. Exactly, Bobby Elaine. Exactly. Lag. God bless Russian Federation. So here's the other thing, guys. I'm not even saying that I'm a huge Russian fan. I'm not at all. But I do respect Russia a lot more than I respect their government and their culture a lot more. You really think there's not inflation going on right now? I've already covered this point. So what we're seeing is a supply chain constraint, logistical problems. Things are collapsing. What we're about to witness, look it up. Retail stores are like, yo, we got too much stuff. We need to lower the prices. We need to get rid of it. Russia has no chance with NATO. The very reason he keeps threatening he doesn't. These are all false allegations. Russia is planning to Yeah, because Lithuania is being forced to, and this is the other thing, NATO's 300,000 troops and military equipment that they want to send. They want to send partially. Sorry, guys, my internet is really crappy on the phone. It's doing just fine on my laptop, so I'm not sure what's going on here. And I'm right next to the router. This is on my phone. On my phone, it's lagging, but on my laptop, it's perfectly fine. So I do apologize about that. Russia has threatened to attack Lithuania, and the reason is because they're preventing them from going to Kaliningrad, and Lithuania is saying the EU made them do it. And then NATO's like, yo, we're going to send military troops to Lithuania. So they're provoking. They're provoking. Might got a cyber attack before transit. It's TikTok. It could be TikTok. All right, let's let in Caleb's World 999. If you don't believe in nuke, I can't trust. I didn't say that they're not real. I'm questioning their existence based on what I just said. Only one person can report on it, or else you were unalived. And then firsthand documents state that they were firebombs. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're not real. I'm just questioning the narrative. I am a true truther. All right, Caleb's World 999. What's going on? All right, so we got some real immature people hopping on here. If anybody wants to have a good conversation, don't be like that Emily guy. I mean, you guys saw him in the chat. He was over there like trying to force to let in. If Russia attacks Lithuania and if NATO joins in, Russia can threaten nuclear war and take it over. They could, but one reason, like another reason to like be dubious about nukes is Why even have them in the first place? Like, if other countries could have it and then you just let off a nuke, well, then your family, your culture is in jeopardy. Other families and cultures are in jeopardy with people who can press a button and do those things. It doesn't make sense. I think that they can fake it. I think that there's ways that they can fake it. But yeah, so deflation is what we're facing. Intimidation, I assume. Yeah, I mean, that is one thing. Intimidation for sure can keep the masses in control. That is one thing. To where dropped in Japan, and if nukes aren't a thing, nuclear power isn't real. That isn't true. That's a false statement. Once again, I've already addressed this comment. Primary sources say that they were fire bombs, and only one big nose, small hat person was allowed to report on it. Everybody else was banned, or they would be unalived. Let's see who has a bigger package. Yeah, it is kind of like that, right? It's like who's the top dog. So it's just a show game. That's all it is. And nuclear weapons and nuclear power are two different things. I mean, nuclear power is definitely real. And arguably, it's one of the cleanest sources of energy there be. So, yeah, I mean, this is just what's going on, guys. It really is. Sounds like I'm not. I'm really not. I'm really not. I promise you. Hey, they get it. They get it on a lot of things. You know, I really like their tribalism. I'm all for their tribalism, man. Swear to God. I think they know how to support one another. They know how to build strong communities that last forever. They really, really get it. They really, really do. And they know how to run stuff. I mean, banking, movies, they get it. I swear to God, I'm not even being sarcastic, facetious, any of it. I'm being very genuine. How do they win? How does who win? Russia? I've already listed the reasons several times. But if you want to come on and have a conversation, we can have a conversation about it, and we can hear what you have to say. We got some saying big nose, small hat. Yeah, you are my dad. Yeah, because I can't say the word on here. I would, but I don't know that I can say the word on here. So we have to speak in code. And that's a good identifier, right? I mean, if you were, like I can't even, you can't, this is the other thing. Like we have to be able to make fun of other people because that then reduces the tension. That's what comedy is for. It's a good thing. It releases tension. It's not bad. And it's true. It's true. Most of them have that. It's a good idea. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. So we all know it's true. And it's not wrong of me to point this out. It just is what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. They get a lot of things. They get a lot of things, but they also get kicked out of a lot of countries because they do some shady stuff. And this is why people get mad at them. I hope nobody gets mad at them. I do. I wish them the best. I truly, truly do. But I think a lot of people are going to be really upset when they start realizing that there's a lot of control in a small set of people. But they're not the only ones who have a lot of power either. There's a big misconception that they run the world. They don't run the world. They're like middle managers. So we got Mick on YouTube here saying, LOL, dude was tripping. Yeah, he was tripping for sure. Like, that was crazy. That was crazy. He was over here trying to demand me to answer his questions, interrupting the other guest. Insane. We are a constitutional oligarchy. Wait, deflation, not inflation. Do you believe inflation isn't real? Inflation is totally real, for sure. But I'm saying we're facing deflation. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the dollar is going to get stronger. Assets are going to fall in prices. The Fed's balance sheet is around $9 trillion. The current accounts defect is hovering around record levels. The public debt is over $30 trillion with short-term maturity. We may see a sudden contraction. ... I don't know if, okay. Yeah, so deflation is what we're facing, guys. I mean, you can look at these retail stores, but we will ultimately suffer an inflationary depression. Wrong. We're going to suffer a deflationary depression. We already have stores like Walmart, Target, Best Buy stating all these things like TVs, stereos, clothing, all these things they have an oversupply of, and they're stopping the shipment of them. Truck drivers don't know what to do with it. They're going to start lowering prices on many of things. It's a confusing time because food prices are going to keep going up, and that's because of supply chain issues. That's because of all the food plants being destroyed, whether it's intentional, not intentional. I think that half of it's organic, half of it's not. Maybe a little bit more not organic. I don't know. But that's a lot more of the issue. Prices are at an all-time low. You just wait. I'm telling you guys, you just wait. I'm serious. Walmart, Target, Best Buy. Once again, I know people in industries where they're purchasing, where they're doing logistics. They're seeing it right now. So are you assuming there will be a crash? 100%. 100%. With short-term maturity debt, the federal government cannot afford higher interest rates, let alone an unwinding of the balance sheet. Yeah, and I think that they're going to be facing deflation, which is going to be really, really bad for their debt. Really, really bad for their debt. One currency to rule them all, that's the plan. In Canada, food prices, gas, and housing is unreasonably expensive. I'm sure in certain parts, yeah. I'm sure, just like it is here. There definitely will be a crash. 100%, but there's many of opportunities in those kind of environments. Now, to get back to why will Russia win? Well, my friend, you can play this back on MOT Media on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all this stuff, and listen to it, but give you a brief summary. Russia is stronger than the United States in many ways. Many ways. That means inflation, by definition, the Federal Reserve will reverse their hikes to return to nominal zero and further negative rates. So we have money printing. We all agree on that, right? That is one part of the equation of inflation. The other part of inflation is the velocity of money. And so you need people to be spending money to be going around like crazy. All right? Those are the two things that you need. What happens, though, when you have an overabundance of supplies? Nobody's addressing this issue. And this is really, really important. What happens when you have an abundance of supplies and you can't get rid of them? You have to reduce prices. You have to. And then you're going to have more actual defaulting on the debt. And then that's going to drive the dollar down. I mean, that's going to drive inflation down. The dollar is going to get stronger because people still have corporate bonds out and they want their U.S. dollar. There's a high demand for dollar. So there's going to be an increase in value. There's going to be an increase in value of the dollar. Increasing of value in the dollar comes in deflationary periods. Inflation is the expansion of money and credit. Velocity is a factor in prices, as is related to supplies. Yeah, but now we know that you need velocity in the printing of money to cause hyperinflation. We know that now. We know that. But address the overabundance of supplies and the fact that many people want the dollar right now. They do. They do. They want their money. It's foreign creditors sell U.S. debt that will destroy the real value of the dollar. Well, the U.S. dollar is becoming more valuable too. I mean, don't get me wrong, fiat currency is crap. I'm not a big fiat currency guy, all right? But the U.S. dollar is the strongest fiat currency there is. The Fed will just print money. Yeah, that's a part of the problem. Nobody's saying that this isn't a part of the problem. But I'm saying what we're going to feel is deflation. And deflation is going to be beneficial for some people for some time. But then the issue is that businesses can't run for a long time in a deflationary period because prices drop, wages increase, or wages stay way above the profitable margin. So then you have to let people go. And then it's not profitable to run a business in a deflationary period. And I think we're going to see another Great Depression. And the Great Depression was a deflationary period. So yeah, we do have a lot of money printing going on, for sure. For sure. We see interest rates being increased to try and dampen the inflation, for sure. The US dollar is a safe haven relative to the other primary currencies which comprise. That does not make it preferred safe haven for the rest of the decade. Nobody's making that argument, George. Nobody's making that argument. You are 100% right. I agree with what you're saying. That it is, we agree on that. It is a safe haven compared to other currencies. It is 100%. But over the next decade, no. And this is why we have the Federal Reserve talking about strengthening the US dollar with a digital currency, something that I've also talked about now for years, that maybe not years, but a couple of years, that the US dollar, the US government, the central bank, will peg USD to a stable coin and make a digital currency. I mean, we already have a digital currency by definition, but utilizing new technology such as blockchain. The United States was not the world's greatest debtor nation during the Great Depression. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, the U.S. economy is basically a global economy, right? Because you have Saudi Arabia buying our treasury. Basically, all of OPEC is like, yo, you give us dollars, we buy your bonds, we give you oil. So the U.S. has a global economy, which is not good, And so with like MMT, right? MMT is like, you have the global reserve currency, you can keep printing and not feel inflation. But we definitely are feeling inflation. But I'm just saying that the big thing that's going to really bring things down is deflation, not inflation. I think it's going to be the opposite of what people are saying. And I think, what's his name? He did a presentation on this. I haven't watched it, but Uneducated Economist, if you guys are familiar, has recommended this. Jeff Steins, something like that, where he has a presentation which he thinks proposes a really good argument for a stronger dollar in a deflationary period. And an uneducated economist also talks about us going through a deflationary period. Vox Day, who's very unknown, not really unknown actually, but he's very censored and banned. He was legitimately the first person to predict the 2008 housing crisis and the recession that we faced. And he's been stating for quite some time that we are going to be seeing deflation. And then from what I'm saying, I would have to concur with them. The U.S. dollar being a safe haven is premised on the ongoing success of petrodollar transactions. Yeah, but it's definitely the strongest fiat currency there is. Excuse me. A negative trade balance is relatively modern phenomenon in the American experience. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. A lot of this stuff is experimental, right, with our economy. And we're seeing it's not working. So I think that the economy is not in good shape. Yo, what's going on, Silver Bugs? What's going on? You missed a lot of the meat, my man. You really did. Like, we had somebody come on the show, tried forcing his way in, like, you better answer my effing questions. He was going nuts. Russia beats America. Why? All right. So, everybody, if we're going to talk about Russia beating America again, you got to do a guest request. We'll have a conversation on it. That'll be more entertaining for the people that are going to be listening to this on podcasts and YouTube later, because I've already addressed this several times. I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be rude at all. Warfighter 771. Oh, dang. Was playing Racco with the kiddos and wife. That's awesome. You had a much better time anyway, my man. Like, Hey, spending time with the family is the best. I hope your wife and kids are great. But you know what? I'll take it back. I'll tell you very briefly why Russia will beat the United States. And then if you want to jump on here, come on, we'll have a conversation. Very simple. Russia beats the United States because Ukraine has been trained by the U.S. CIA for 8 years, 2005 to 2022. Ukraine has also been trained by NATO for a long time. Their armed forces are failing on multiple fronts. Their intelligence is failing on multiple fronts. Russia's thriving. The U.S., so that shows you that U.S. training and Western training is nothing compared to Russian training. All right? Russia's much better on the ground than Western forces. There's one thing. The other reason is Russia has a more localized supply chain than the United States. The United States is more so dependent on China and Russia for their minerals and materials to create ammunition, and night vision goggles, and a bunch of other stuff. Start imposing sanctions on the U.S., U.S. no do so well. U.S. is struggling on a military front, getting people. That's why they're recruiting people at Top Gun movie theaters and removing the high school diploma requirement to get drafted. Lake Mead is a big deal. Need to pay attention to that for sure. We were covering that on the TikTok channel for quite some time, way before anybody else. So we deserve some credit for that, all right? That is a huge issue. There is going to be a drought problem in the western half of the United States. So our air superiority is way too advanced, man. Nah, man, I think the United States is only strong in their Navy. And I think that we're going to lose everywhere else. So then we have George over here on YouTube. If a dozen trains are heading backwards, the one moving slowest is not moving forward. That is the case for the U.S. dollar right now, but it will accelerate when foreign creditors withdraw. If a dozen trains are heading backwards, the one moving the slowest is not moving forward. Okay. I think I get what you're saying. They will scatter and flood the other states. What are you talking about, Silverbug? What will scatter and flood the other states? You know, I think that what we're going to see in America is probably some type of balkanization. And this may be a result of World War III. I think we're in World War III right now, and we're just waiting to see how things unfold. That's what we're waiting for, you know, because NATO is adding 3,000. As I mentioned before, they're getting more 300,000 like force troops or whatever, sending military equipment to Ukraine, to Lithuania, preparing for bigger conflicts. And they're doing this as a scapegoat. This is all scapegoat for the economy. There's other things as well that play into this, but yeah. So, you know, the United States is not what it once was. That's not a problem. When Lake Mead dries up, pretty much the main water source to many, they will have to find. Yeah. Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah. So there's going to be mass migration, is what you're saying, because of Lake Mead drying up. Yeah, that is a big deal. That is a really big deal. There will be mass migration because of it. And we'll see how other states feel about that. You know, I think that in Idaho, there's been some issues in northern Idaho with a lot of, you know, liberals coming from California into Idaho. There's been a lot of problems with that. Probably in Texas as well. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out in the future. It really is. But I'm very hopeful for America. Don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not. Live keeps freezing up. Let's switch over. All right, so I have to keep going back between my data and my Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi works better sometimes, data works better sometimes. Sorry, my laptop, perfectly fine. No glitching whatsoever on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. My phone, being weird. We got George over here. State and federal governments will launch massive bailouts to fill the void, which will further enable demand for fewer goods. Probably. I mean, did you hear that California is wanting to launch a relief program, like giving their citizens stimmy checks for gas prices and inflation. California's talking about already doing stuff like that. So, and then it's going to be really interesting how things play out. It really, really is. But I'm not anti-American whatsoever. I'm very pro-American. I think that we need to look at these things objectively. We need to search for truth, and truth can be uncomfortable because it contradicts our beliefs sometimes. And so we just have to be honest with the situation. And right now, the situation isn't looking good for the West, but it also means that there's a lot of opportunities for people who are aware of what's taking place. And that's the whole goal of what we do here on MOT, is we try to inform you of these uncomfortable truths, cover topics that nobody's really talking about, and giving you perspectives nobody's really talking about, to better equip you with knowledge so that way you can better prepare. Our Navy alone has enough firepower to turn Russia forces into an oil slick. I mean, you'll see if we get in direct conflict with Russia. The Federal Reserve has already indicated that they are in the business of supporting the markets. By that, that means the stock market. They will not intentionally allow the stock market to plummet. I agree with you. They won't intentionally allow it to plummet. But I don't think that there's much that they can do. I mean, if people stop spending money, if people start saving money because they're seeing. So this is the thing, right? So factor in the surplus of items that are taking place. What happens when everybody's fat on the hog and they have everything they want? They stop spending money. And if they are viewing that having money is more valuable than having assets, the majority of people will then do what? Keep their money as opposed to spending their money, which will then help contribute to a deflationary period. What are your thoughts on CERN? I think they got caught up in their evil, that they are trying to find a way to stop God's return. I'll address that in 1 second. They can continue to expand their balance sheet to buy the markets. This is inflationary. They could, but I don't think that they will. And I don't know how long they can do that for, because they need to be able to keep giving out debt too, because you seem very knowledgeable, maybe more knowledgeable than me on this. For real. I'm not even being sarcastic. But my understanding is you need to keep creating debt in order to print the money. But what if nobody wants to take out your debt? Then can you keep printing the money? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I sound like a complete idiot. But then if that's the case, then they can't keep doing the inflation. I could be totally wrong. So correct me if I'm wrong, George. And then Aiden Mack, people don't want dollars. They want the goods they can or could buy with their dollars. Yeah, and if their dollars appear to be more valuable, they want to have more of those dollars so that way they can buy more of those goods. What are your thoughts on CERN? I think CERN is, I don't believe in a lot of CERN. I don't know what's going on there. I haven't done much research in CERN, but I'm very dubious of it. And I don't think that they can stop God's return. That's giving too much power to man and the devil. So the balance sheet can theoretically expand indefinitely. Theoretically, but practically, right? So can it practically? Because sometimes theoretically, theories don't work in reality. So practically, can that take place? Can the balance sheet continue practically to expand indefinitely? I don't think so. I don't think it's practical. I don't think that it's very practical. I think that it's a theoretical thing that could work, obviously, as you stated, but would it work in reality? I don't think so. But I don't know. Let me know. You may know more than me. So, yeah. If anybody wants to jump on here on TikTok, feel free to send in a guest request. If you got any questions, you want to have a conversation on these things, go ahead. Remember, the Federal Reserve is the buyer of last resort. In practical terms, they were never supposed to maintain the $4 trillion level, let alone the current $9 trillion level. Yeah, we keep getting surprised at the threshold in which they can maintain. This is true. But does that mean that they can just keep going indefinitely? Is that indicative, is that proof that they can keep going indefinitely? I think it's that they can keep going much longer than they thought they could. But can they get up to $500 quadrillion in debt, right? I don't know. I don't think so. I think at some point it's going to, collapse. And then also, if we're going to go into this hyperinflationary period, not financial advice, but wouldn't it be very wise for people to put their money in assets? The only tipping point is where foreign creditors and importers lose faith. Yeah, and right now they haven't lost faith in the dollar. A lot of people want their dollars. And yes, but here's the thing, though. We are losing faith with a lot. Yes, assets are the last resort. Yeah. So so a lot of countries are losing faith in America too. So this is a very, very complicated thing that we're experiencing, right? It really is. Because a lot of people still want the dollar because of a lot of corporate bonds, whatever. But also, a lot of people are losing faith in doing business with the United States because of what's taking place with Russia. So we have a lot of things going on here, and it's very interesting. NATO will crash Russia easily? No, I don't think so. Let's see here. What happened to the camera? There we go. Hopefully it's not lagging so much anymore. But yeah, I mean, if you guys have no more questions, comments, want to join on, I'm going to get out of here in a couple minutes. I'll stay on and see if there's anything that you guys want to talk about. But WW Willie 25, no, Russia will not. I mean, NATO, no, NATO will not crush Russia easily. We already saw that their training is ineffective. We're seeing it every day. Hi from Russia. What's going on, Lewis is sexy. What's going on? Who's your favorite economist? I don't know that I have a favorite economist. I like Vox Day, as I mentioned earlier. I would consider him I think he got his economics degree, but he talks a lot about the economy, and I like his view on it. Milton Friedman, I mean, that's a give me, right? I mean, obviously. But I don't know. I don't really study economics a whole lot, if I'm being honest. I just don't. I read a lot of different stuff. And then I apply that knowledge all together. Who's your favorite economist? Is it Paul Kruger or Krugman? I know it's definitely not. I highly recommend that you look into Rothbard, Missy, Hayek, Saul, Hazlitt. Yeah, for sure. I will definitely do that. I love to read. I'm a big, I spend most of my days reading. I'm writing this down right now, who you suggested. I'll look into them. It's a disgrace to the field. 100%. Insane. The guy's insane. How does he get awards? What is your guys' view on crypto? I want to hear George's view on crypto. See what he has to say about crypto. I'm a big fan of crypto. This is also the other thing. I know what I know by and large, a huge part because of crypto. He's in the pocket of the left. 100%. 100%. A lot of this I learned once I discovered Bitcoin. Went down the rabbit hole of what is fiat currency? Why do we need Bitcoin? What is cryptocurrency? How do the economies run? That was sort of the eye-opener for me, was getting into cryptocurrencies and then learning more about the economy. And then now we see that cryptocurrencies are by and large correlated with the stock market. So, They're not really correlated assets, but they pump much harder in a bull market. That's a fact. So, yeah. But, all right, guys, I'm about to get out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please like, share, subscribe. Monday through Friday, 10 p.m., you can catch the Honest Hour. And then on Sundays, we have MOT Today, where Mick and I get together. We cover the weekly events of what's going on. And then we also have MOT Sports, where we have James and Mick talk about sports in the morning on Saturdays. Be sure to check that out. So like, share, subscribe, all those good things. Head to and search for what the 21% flash crash proves about Bitcoin. Will do. I'll look into that, man. So let me put that in a tab right now. That way I remember. And then I'll get out of here. So, Pardocracy. Let me do this. All right, I'm going to end this on TikTok. Much love, guys. Peace. Let's do this. All right. Then we're going to call it a day, but I want to type this into my phone, have it saved here. All right. I'll be sure to look that up. Thank you all for tuning in. Once again, like, share, subscribe, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Much love. Peace.